Welcome to the Legacies of Light podcast, the podcast for lightworkers who are remembering their soul's purpose and why they came here to Earth. I'm your host, Josette LeBlanc, and today we're going to be talking about being too big for your britches, being full of yourself, being arrogant, and what that means for lightworkers. I recorded this around July 25th, 2024, but whenever you're listening to this, this is going to be relevant. The reason I recorded this at this time is because the energy that I'm about to talk to you about was related to Leo season, but the information I share is relevant no matter what the season, no matter what time of year it is. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. If you like what you hear, please subscribe. And here we go. Today we're going to be talking about arrogance, being too big for your britches. This is a topic that I've been exploring for a long time since I started doing this work, my energy work and coaching and mentoring. And it's also been something that's been close to my heart because it's a fear that I've dealt with. I'm inspired to share this video or this talk with you because it is something that is extra highlighted right now in the cosmos. And I'm going to be looking at this through the lens of astrology, the gene keys, and tarot. I'm trying something new. The sun moved in Leo on July 22nd. And based on the system of the gene keys, this means that the gene key 31 is highlighted. If you don't know what the gene keys are, I have shared an article in the description that explains what they are. But essentially, they're a system very similar to human design that helps you connect astrology, the I Ching, even DNA strands to helping us understand ourselves better. So it's a system of contemplation. And right now, we're working with the first degrees of Leo. In gene keys, this is from the 2nd degree to about the 7th degree in Leo. And this highlights gene key 31. Now, again, that article will explain gene keys in more depth, but also specifically, that article is something I wrote in 2021 when I was exploring Lionsgate, and then the energy of this time, I discovered that gene key 31 was coming up. And what is gene key 31? So the city that is highlighted, so the city is the highest level of energy that one can integrate when it comes to the energy we're going to be talking about. So the shadow level of gene key 31 is arrogance, and the gift of the gene key 31 is leadership, okay? And when we get beyond the shadow, again, arrogance, beyond the gift, leadership, we get to the city, which is humility. These are very different than what our basic mundane concept of these words are. So we're going to dig deep into this. The Gene Keys was developed by a man called Richard Rudd. Again, you can find the information about him and his work in the description. Okay, so the first degrees of Leo are connected to the gene key 31. And when we're talking about those first degrees, we're talking about also the first decan. So that's the first 10 degrees. The first 10 degrees relates to the tarot card, the 5 of Wands. Okay, and I will leave any links to resources, the authors and people who helped me resource this. All the information is in the description. So we have the 5 of Wands. 5 of Wands relate to fire. Leo is fire. And action, okay, taking action. You can see here in this card that the people are fighting. It looks like they're fighting. But if we read the description, this is from the Rider-Waite Tarot. This is the description. A posse of youths are brandishing staves as if in sport or strife. Strife is the word. It is mimic warfare. Mimic. So strife, mimic. The divinatory meanings, imitation, for example, sham fight, the strenuous competition and struggle of the search after riches and fortune, Hence, some attributions say that it is a card of gold, gain, and opulence. The reason I wanted to highlight this card, because if we look at our own concept of arrogance, right? For you who are listening and the people that I work with, the concept of arrogance really feels uncomfortable. We look at people who display arrogant tendencies as people who are trying to make themselves bigger than they are, more important than they are. And this is mimicking, right? Pretending, being false. And this is something that comes up when we're dealing with imposter syndrome. Who am I to do this? Or I'm not good enough. These are our concepts. So on one side, we have somebody who believes they are good enough to the point of creating an illusion of their importance. And then on the other side, we have someone who is not owning their worth or their wisdom at all and making themselves so small that we don't see them. This was a question that came up in my intuition development call this week, very synchronistically, right on time for Leo going into, the sun going into Leo. So just as Gene Key 31 was being illuminated, one of the participants was talking about how they felt that there was a sense of worthiness that they couldn't feel because they felt that when they shared their gifts, that other people would feel they were too big for their britches, full of themselves. Who are you to claim that you are divine source, right? That you are communicating divine source. But this is where we get to flip the script. And I highly recommend that you read my blog post, The Gift Behind the Shadow of Arrogance. So let's explore that in more depth. So I'm actually going to read from the article and then I'll riff on it. So it's not surprising that we associate arrogance with overbearing public figures and people who make bold claims. From the perspective of the Gene Keys, this shadow is defined by the skill of using language to manipulate others. Language to manipulate others. Language to create an illusion, right? This is bringing to mind the incredible importance for us to not start with the intention of creating an illusion. And as lightworkers, healers, people who are working with the unseen arts, manipulation can be an easy tactic for gaining wealth. This is something that we see a lot, especially now with the internet, these false gurus. The word cult gets thrown around a lot, especially when we're working with energy work and healers, self-proclaimed healers. And it's a very fine line between, is this in integrity? Is this out of integrity? Because this is what happens with language. We have the ability to manipulate. So as a light worker who sees this, who can see this ability to manipulate, it is important and imperative for us to be clear that we are not here to save anyone. Yes, we can have an equal exchange of money or energy, because money is energy, for the services we render. But we can never promise that we are the divine energy that is coming through. No, okay? I'm going to talk a little bit more about the divine energy coming through in a bit. But I felt like I had to go down that path as we were talking about manipulation, because this is a very important part of my work too, is to help students, participants of my programs to understand how not to manipulate, how to use your language to help the people who are coming to you to be very clear that you are not their healer, you are not their savior, you are here to support them, to walk next to them, but you are not here to save them. Okay, so let's keep going. What makes manipulation a shadow rather than a gift, and the gift we're dealing with here is leadership, is the fact that the intention is rooted in the intellect or ego rather than the heart. And I'm not talking about divine intellect here, divine wisdom. We're talking about ego, the part of us in the 3D that is here to survive. So while there's nothing inherently wrong with the ego, when it's not led by the heart, and heart can be, you can call it intuition, soul, right? The ego has the inherent tendency to believe it can save itself or control outcomes no matter the cost. This is what happens with the ego. And this is why we see people misusing information in order to gain something, right? And this is why we get afraid, because we don't want to be associated with that energy, because that is not who we are. But this is where we're getting a mixed signal, and we are not interpreting our gifts appropriately. So coming back to this idea that arrogance stems from not speaking from the heart, okay? Not speaking from the heart. And I highly recommend that you check out the Gene Key 31 in Richard Rudd's book to learn more specifically what he talks about. I'm riffing a little bit on this, but when we're not speaking from the heart, we're not speaking from our higher self. In another way to look at this is we're not in alignment with our higher self. When we are speaking in ways in order to try to prove something, whether it's our worth, our knowledge, our wisdom, when we're trying to prove, we are moving away from our heart and our higher self. So I love this quote from Richard Rudd. He says, "The real arrogance comes from being cut off from our divine source. Words that are not rooted in a profound sense of wonder are always at some level arrogant. Only the human heart can truly offer an answer to the mystery of existence. And unless your words carry the perfume of love somewhere behind them, they are still waiting around in the shadow frequency." The perfume of love. So 2 words here, wonder and the phrase perfume of love. Wonder. This is what I told the participant on the call. The information, as a light worker, healer, whatever you want to call yourself, the information that comes through you is not you. It doesn't mean that you need to put yourself down. It is coming through you. So there is a sense of awe and like reverence for your human body that is required, for the intellect that you have, for everything that has come together for you to be able to transmit the message, the energy, the beingness of yourself is all a mix of all that. But the biggest antidote to arrogance is wonder. I always say, for me, and it's interesting to talk about this because I'm fighting both the desire to say I'm not a guru, which can be heard through the lens of humility or humbleness, being humble, and humble, I'm not good and I'm very small. And also the lens of, are people thinking I'm arrogant? I'm still human. But one thing I know is when I do my energy work, I am always in awe. And you'll often hear me say, can't make that shit up. Like, I'm still in the awe of it all, is the reverence for having this opportunity to do this work in this way. How did I get to this place? I was able to continuously choose my heart, my soul, my intuition. Now, this is my unique story. Sometimes it doesn't turn out that way for others. And for whenever shadows come in, we always have to face them. And shadows will always come in on our journeys. And how do we face them? In some cases, it will be very challenging, right? But I do believe that when we choose our heart, our higher self, that the path will illuminate. And the path that illuminates is the path of love. Intuition, higher self, is a connection to love, right? And when we choose love, the perfume of love, then it can't be arrogance. And if people want to call it arrogance, that's their choice. So the next thing I want to mention is something that was inspired by a recent chat with my friend Leilani Manulu. And in Gene Key 31, the conversation goes to the idea that we remain in the shadow frequency, so arrogance, we remain there, the interaction of being arrogant or being afraid of being arrogant, when we don't realize that we are not separate from nature. We are not separate from nature, meaning that everything that I have, so my hair, the way I speak, the information I have in my brain, or the wisdom I hold in my subconscious, everything is part of nature. I am one with nature. My ability to do energy work is part of nature. A flower that is pink, that has a certain fragrance, is part of nature. It is natural, okay? And the more that you align with your true self, your authentic self, the more you are aligning with nature. You are fighting against nature when you are trying to do things that are not your gift to do. So this is another quote that comes from my blog post. So this is where many light workers get confused. We intuitively know we want to act on behalf of nature, but we buy into the illusion that we're in control of the outcome, and this outcome is entirely self-serving. No, you being able to do what you do is not only about you. It is about the people around you who need you, the nature that thrives because you are being yourself. And then the next quote, but what we need to realize is that our words do carry the perfume of love behind them. When we look closely at why we want to express what we want to express, we'll see it's because we want to serve the world. And serve not only in the sense of, I'm going to go out and do some good work. I'm going to go do some action, create something. Serving the world is you being yourself. Just existing, reading a book, because that is exactly what feels right. And I'm not saying we're not going to come up with some conflicts. We're human and all that. But when we come back, when through the conflict, we come back to what nurtures our heart, this is a service. This can't be arrogant because it's an action that's in service of nature. In fact, the act or the beingness is nature itself. So when we lead into this, we start to understand and heal the shadow of arrogance. The gift behind this is leadership. Leadership, okay? So from Gene Keys, you can only ever be free when you have escaped language, when you are no longer a victim of your own mental constructs and words. When the heart finally begins to speak, it organizes the words without you having to think about their meaning. The high frequency of the heart is what conveys the true meaning, the authentic meaning of who you are, right? The word leadership, we have our own visions of this. If you've gone through leadership coaching, it's a loaded word. We see somebody at the head, but here's another way to look at it. A leader is a guide. A good leader is a guide, somebody to show, illuminate the path. As someone, you, with a vision that has the potential to benefit, and I'm talking about I'm talking about healing, bringing joy, bringing peace to your community, and as a result, the greater collective, you're about to take on the role of a guide. People will want you to shine a light on the path because you're the one who can see it. They can't. This is why you're a trailblazer, right? So you, the gift that you have, whatever it looks like, artistic, psychic, intuitive, you are seeing this because you are meant to see it. You have signed up for this. Your higher self, this is coming through you now because you signed up for this. And when you shine that, others are behind you, whether they know it consciously or not, saying, yes, finally, somebody is showing me something that I can't see because I know there's something wrong. It doesn't feel good. I just don't have the capacity, the knowledge, the wisdom, whatever, to figure it out. But this person does. And I'm so thankful for them. Your ego will play tricks on you. It'll try to convince you that you're arrogant for wanting to imagine this role as a guide. And that's fine. That's the ego's job. It doesn't mean you need to give it energy by believing it. To counteract this sneaky ego trip, remind yourself that your deepest intention for wanting to be this guide is so that you can ease the collective suffering in whatever way that is. Whether you're cleaning your house, doing the dishes. You're easing some type of suffering within your home of a dirty house. Whatever brings you joy, that enlightenment. I got to tell you, 6 years ago, I don't think I would have been here doing videos talking about what? Gene keys? What are those, right? I had an inkling about tarot cards. I was curious about it, but I could never have named what the Five of Wands means to you. Talking about astrology felt so foreign to me, and now it is part of my language. I have such gratitude for finally being able to understand what my heart wanted to say for all these years, but I kept pushing it down because I was trying to fit the mold of what I thought I was supposed to be because I thought this is what others wanted. Okay, so you're a part of nature, and your vision is nature's way of healing itself and evolving. All right. So I'm going to leave it there. You have some time to check out the blog post that I wrote. I haven't even hit on the concept of humility through the gene keys. I might do another video on that because it's very fascinating. But I do highly recommend, again, the blog post, because at the end of the blog post, there are some questions to help you shift your energy from the fear of arrogance into the gift of leadership. And it might help you let go of this idea of false humility, right? So check out those questions. Just an example here. What small act can you take each day to quiet your mind to hear the subtle voice of your heart? Very, simple. And that's it. So if you enjoyed what you heard today, please subscribe, leave a comment if you have any questions. If you're interested in working with me, these are topics I talk about a lot with my community, the Discern community within Intuition Immersion School. I'm leaving all the links below. If you want to get to know me, you can sign up for my free course, Intuition 101. And yeah, thanks so much for being here.